I just had a habit of doing this, always in red. And there were a lot of people that testified.
I remember waking up in my underwear on the floor. The next thing that I remember, people screaming, dogs barking.
Did he show any emotion?
Not that much.
I assume that I must have gone crazy.
It's very hard to prove to a jury that if you were sleepwalking, that you could do all of these actions.
Summer 1999. Hot outside, but an overwhelming chill could be felt in the Phoenix courtroom.
You had uniquely a next-door neighbor who watched most of this.
Ron Reinstein was the judge in the Scott Falater case, a case that would become an international spectacle.
Explain to me then, as you're stabbing your wife 44 times and she's screaming and you're moving about, how it is that a little teeny tiny alarm on your hand can wake you up and her screaming can't.
It didn't always wake me up, and I'm not a sleep doctor. I can't explain the difference.
It began 2 years earlier, on a night in January.
Just heard her yelling, and you could hear her rolling around in the rocks.
Scott Falater's next-door neighbors jolted awake.
We went outside to see if we could hear if somebody needed help or something, and then the screaming quit.
Police got to the house to find Falater waiting for them. His wife Yarmila dead in the pool, 44 stab wounds to her body. Falater told them he had been sleepwalking and couldn't remember anything. But the next-door neighbor told police he watched Falater stab his wife, drag her to the pool, hold her head underwater, and then
Quieting the dog, going up the stairs, turning on a light, taking clothes off, going down to the garage, getting things out of the garage.
he stashed the bloody knife and his bloody clothes in his car, all while his 12 and 15-year-old children were asleep in the house.
I was in my car driving down the road and it came on the radio. And my mouth just dropped and I thought, did I hear that right?
This woman worked with Scott Falater at Motorola for years. She asked we conceal her identity.
What went through your mind when you heard the details of what unfolded that night?
I felt like maybe you really don't know people like you thought you did, or how could I miss not knowing he had that in him?
You're charged with homicide.
A capital murder case with a sleepwalking defense and a gruesome murder. Falater's defense attorney brought his sister Laura Healy to the stand. She recalled a violent sleepwalking incident 20 years prior with her brother in their kitchen.
And when I did that, I brushed against him and he turned around and lifted me up and just tossed me through the air.
The defense argued stress could bring on Falater's sleepwalking episodes. Falater's co-worker and friend knew his work stress at Motorola was constant.
It was not a 40-hour job, put it that way. It was, 60, 80-hour job kind of thing.
Basically, get the chip working by this date, and it's 6 months in the future. You work long hours to meet that.
He would be under tremendous amount of pressure from his management to get products released on time.
Sleep experts testified on both sides of the case.
I feel that he was awake. I know that he was awake during these episodes.
It started as a benign sleepwalk, became a violent episode, and then proceeded through a confusional arousal.
The defense also drove another point home.
There was no motive, I think, that was ever shown.
The defense said he had no reason to kill his wife.
I assume that I must have gone crazy, or something in my head had broken. The things I remember Detective Norman pointing out blood on me during the interrogation, which, as I thought about it, just really sort of confirmed that it had to be me.
What wakes somebody up when they're sleepwalking?
It would be very difficult to actually wake someone up while they're sleepwalking because they're in a very deep state of sleep.
Laurie Ledley is a top sleep expert in the Phoenix area now. From an outside view, she took a look at the case.
When somebody is sleepwalking, what happens in their mind?
In a parasomnia like sleepwalking, you don't remember what you do while you're sleepwalking.
How could he not wake up? She's likely screaming. Would that not wake somebody up?
I agree that it should, because the movements are very intentional, right? 44 stabs.
She believes he did have a sleep disorder, but she says usually an episode like this would last up to 20 minutes. There is about 50 minutes of time Falater claims he can't remember.
Is that realistic?
The timing of all those events and someone to be in a deep state of sleep throughout all those events, I personally find highly unlikely. I draw the line where he put her in the pool.
That just doesn't seem possible.
I feel like he might have woke up and panicked and then hiding it all. Yeah, I just don't believe that he was asleep all that time.
And ultimately,
You can't get away with murder.
the jury agreed.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action, upon our oaths do find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree.
Several jurors spoke out right after the verdict, unapologetic of a first-degree murder conviction.
But the number of stab wounds, the fact that she was drugged to the pool and held under, I can't believe that he was sleepwalking.
Cleaning up, changing clothes, that just struck us as not quite believable.
Back then, the judge would decide the sentencing.
You could have put this man to death. What went into your decision to give him life in prison?
You had these two children who had lost their mother. Now, one way or another, they were going to lose their father.
Scott Falater will spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Do you feel like to this day you made the right decision in the sentencing?
I mean, as far as giving him natural life, yes, I do.
The difference between life and death.
No, he dragged the body. I think he woke up.
All rested on whether a man was awake or asleep.
He said he was very tired and that he couldn't keep up with everything, and sometimes he was a walking zombie.
The last memory of Yarmila Falater alive, a memory her longtime lover and killer forever claims he doesn't have.
Do you believe he was asleep when he killed his wife?
I'm not sure what I believe. Having known him, the only thing that I feel is that whatever state he was in, I don't think he was in his right mind, because I think he snapped.